Then Sam made his way stealthily to the outlet of Shelob's tunnel, where the rags of her great web were still blowing and swaying in the cold airs. For cold they seemed to Sam after the noisome darkness behind, but the breath of them revived him. He crept cautiously out. All was ominously quiet. The light was no more than that of dusk at a dark day's end. Sam looked up towards the Orc Tower, and suddenly from its narrow windows lights stared out like small red eyes. He wondered if they were some signal. Without any clear purpose he drew out the ring and put it on. Immediately he felt the great burden of its weight. He ran forward to the crown of the climbing path and over it. At once the road turned left and plunged steeply down. Sam had crossed into Mordor. Already the ring tempted him, gnawing at his will and reason. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to the overthrow of Barad-dûr. And then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command the vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees, and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. He crept on, and as he went he wondered how many orcs lived in the tower with Shagrat, and how many Gorbag had, and what they were quarrelling about, if that was what was happening. Shagrat's company had seemed to be about 40, and Gorbag's more than twice as large. But of course Shagrat's patrol had only been a part of his garrison. Almost certainly they were quarrelling about Frodo and the spoil. He drew Sting and ran towards the open gate, but just as he was about to pass under its great arch he felt a shock, as if he had run into some web like Shelob's, only invisible. He could see no obstacle, but something too strong for his will to overcome barred the way. He looked about, and then within the shadow of the gate he saw the 2 watchers. Then, greatly daring, because he could think of nothing else to do, answering a sudden thought that came to him, he drew slowly out the phial of Galadriel and held it up. Its white light quickened swiftly, and the shadows under the dark arch fled. The monstrous watchers sat there cold and still, revealed in all their hideous shape. For a moment Sam caught a glitter in the black stones of their eyes, the very malice of which made him quail. But slowly he felt their will waver and crumble into fear. From what he heard of the captain's talk, Sam knew that, dead or alive, Frodo would most likely be found in a chamber high up in the turret far above. But he might search for a day before he found the way. "It'll be near the back, I guess," Sam muttered. "The whole tower climbs backwards like." Up he went. It was dark, save for an occasional torch flaring at a turn, or beside some opening that led into the higher levels of the tower. Sam tried to count the steps, but after 200 he lost his reckoning. He was moving quietly now, for he thought that he could hear the sound of voices talking, still some way above. More than one rat remained alive, it seemed. All at once, when he felt that he could pump out no more breath, nor force his knees to bend again, the stair ended. Out of the turret door a smaller orc came flying. Behind him came Shagrat, a large orc with long arms that, as he ran crouching, reached to the ground. But one arm hung limp and seemed to be bleeding. The other hugged a large black bundle. In the red glare, Sam, cowering behind the stair door, caught a glimpse of his evil face as it passed. It was scored as if by rending claws and smeared with blood. If Sam could have known the grief that his escape would bring, he might have quailed, but now his mind was set on the last stage of his search. Something was lying on the floor by the wall under the window, but over it a black orc shape was straddled. It raised a whip a second time, but the blow never fell. With a cry, Sam leapt across the floor, sting in hand. The orc wheeled round, but before it could make a move, Sam slashed its whip hand from its arm. Howling with pain and fear, but desperate, the orc charged head down at him. Sam's next blow went wide, and thrown off his balance, he fell backwards, clutching at the orc as it stumbled over him. Before he could scramble up, he heard a cry and a thud. The orc, in its wild haste, had tripped on the ladder head and fallen through an open trapdoor. Sam gave no more thought to it. He ran to the figure huddled on the floor. It was Frodo. He was naked, lying as if in a swoon on a heap of filthy rags. Sam fumbled for the ring and its chain. "But I suppose you must take it back." Now it had come to it, Sam felt reluctant to give up the ring and burden his master with it again. "You've got it?" gasped Frodo. "You've got it here? Sam, you're a marvel!" Then quickly and strangely his tone changed. "Give it to me," he cried, standing up, holding out a trembling hand. "Give it me at once. You can't have it." "All right, Mr. Frodo," said Sam, rather startled. "Here it is." Slowly he drew the ring out and passed the chain over his head. "I've got to get you out of here at once, see? But first you want some clothes and gear and then some food. The clothes will be the easiest part. As we're in Mordor, we'd best dress up Mordor fashion. Anyway, there isn't no choice. It'll have to be orc stuff for you, Mr. Frodo, I'm afraid, and for me too. If we go together, we'd best match." Then they ran through the gate and past the great seated figures with their glittering eyes. There was a crack. The keystone of the arch crashed almost on their heels, and the wall above crumbled and fell in ruin. Only by a hair did they escape. A bell clanged, and from the watchers there went up a high and dreadful wail. Far up above in the darkness it was answered. Out of the black sky there came, dropping like a bolt, a winged shape, rending the clouds with a ghastly shriek. Down the road from the gate they fled. In 50 paces, with a swift bend round a jutting bastion of the cliff, it took them out of sight from the tower. They had escaped for the moment. They plunged down between high rock walls in a cutting that fell steeply to join the Morgul road. They came to the way meeting. The eastern faces of the Efel Duath were sheer, falling in cliff and precipice to the black trough that lay between them and the inner ridge. A short way beyond the way meeting and another steep incline, a flying bridge of stone leapt over the chasm and bore the road across into the tumbled slopes and glens of the Morgai. With a desperate spurt, Frodo and Sam dashed along the bridge. It was the morning of the 15th of March, and over the Vale of Anduin the sun was rising above the eastern shadow, and the southwest wind was blowing. Theoden lay dying on the Pelennor fields. They saw a beaten path that wound its way under the feet of the westward cliffs, Had they known, they could have reached it quicker, for it was a track that left the main Morgul road at the western bridge end and went down by a long stair cut in the rock to the valley's bottom. It was used by patrols or by messengers going swiftly to lesser posts and strongholds north between Cirith Ungol and the narrows of Icenmouth, the iron jaws of Karak Angren. It was perilous for the hobbits to use such a path, but they needed speed, and Frodo felt that he could not face the toil of scrambling among the boulders or in the trackless glens of the Morgai. The orcs were going at a great pace. Those in the foremost files bore torches. On they came, red flames in the dark, swiftly growing. Now Sam too bowed his head, hoping that it would hide his face when the torches reached them, and he set their shields before their knees to hide their feet. If only they are in a hurry and will let a couple of tired soldiers alone and pass on, he thought. Then suddenly one of the slave drivers spied the two figures by the roadside. He flicked a whip at them and yelled, "Hi, you, get up!" They did not answer, and with a shout he halted the whole company. "Come on, you slugs," he cried. "This is no time for slouching." He took a step towards them, and even in the gloom he recognised the devices on their shields. "Deserting, eh?" he snarled. "Or thinking of it? All your folk should have been inside Udun before yesterday evening. You know that. Up you get and fall in, or I'll have your numbers and report you." They struggled to their feet, and keeping bent, limping like footsore soldiers, they shuffled back towards the rear of the line. "No, not at the rear," the slave driver shouted. "3 files up, and stay there, or you'll know it when I come down the line." He sent his long whiplash cracking over their heads, and then with another crack and a yell, he started the company off again at a brisk trot. It was hard enough for poor Sam, tired as he was, but for Frodo it was a torment and soon a nightmare. He set his teeth and tried to stop his mind from thinking, and he struggled on. The stench of the sweating orcs about him was stifling, and he began to gasp with thirst. On they went, and he bent all his will to draw his breath and to make his legs keep going, and yet to what evil end he toiled and endured he did not dare to think. Then, just as he was putting his hand to his sword, there came an unexpected relief. They were out on the plain now and drawing near the entrance to Udun. Some way in front of it, before the gate at the bridge end, the road from the west converged with others, coming from the south and from Barad-dûr. Though the drivers yelled and plied their whips, scuffles broke out and some blades were drawn. A troop of heavy-armed Uruks from Barad-dûr charged into the Durthang line and threw them into confusion. Dazed as he was with pain and weariness, Sam woke up, grasped quickly at his chance, and threw himself to the ground, dragging Frodo down with him. Orcs fell over them, snarling and cursing. Slowly, on hand and knee, the hobbits crawled away out of the turmoil, until at last, unnoticed, they dropped over the further edge of the road. They climbed onto the causeway and trudged along down the hard, cruel road that led to the Dark Tower itself. But their luck held, and for the rest of that day they met no living or moving thing, and when night fell they vanished into the darkness of Mordor. Now a new decision must be made. They could not follow this road any longer, for it went on eastward into the great shadow, but the mountain now loomed upon their right, almost due south, and they must turn towards it. Yet still before it there stretched a wide region of fuming, barren, ash-ridden land. Now at last they turned their faces to the mountain and set out, thinking no more of concealment, bending their weariness and failing wills only to the one task of going on. In the dimness of its dreary day, few things even in that land of vigilance could have espied them, save from close at hand. Of all the slaves of the Dark Lord, only the Nazgul could have warned him of the peril that crept, small but indomitable, into the very heart of his guarded realm. But the Nazgul and their black wings were abroad on other errand. They were gathered far away, shadowing the march of the captains of the West, and thither the thought of the Dark Tower was turned. The last stage of their journey to Orodruin came, and it was a torment greater than Sam had ever thought that he could bear. He was in pain and so parched that he could no longer swallow even a mouthful of food. A sudden weight smote him and he crashed forward, tearing the backs of his hands that still clasped his master's. Then he knew what had happened. From above him, as he lay, he heard a hated voice. "Wicked master," it hissed. "Wicked master cheats us. Cheats Smeagol. Blum. He mustn't go that way. He mustn't hurt Precious. Give it to Smeagol. Yes, give it to us. Give it to us." With a violent heave, Sam rose up. At once he drew his sword, but he could do nothing. Gollum and Frodo were locked together. Gollum was tearing at his master, trying to get at the chain and the ring. "Look out," cried Sam, "he'll spring." He stepped forward, brandishing his sword. "Quick, master," he gasped. Go on, no time to lose. I'll deal with him, go on." Gollum got up on all fours and backed away for several paces, and then he turned, and as Sam aimed a kick at him, he fled away down the path. Sam gave no more heed to him. The light sprang up again, and there on the brink of the chasm, at the very crack of doom, stood Frodo, black against the glare, tense, erect, but still as if he had been turned to stone. "Master!" cried Sam. Then Frodo stirred and spoke with a clear voice. Indeed, with a voice clearer and more powerful than Sam had ever heard him use, and it rose above the throb and turmoil of Mount Doom, ringing in the roof and walls. "I have come," he said, "but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine." And suddenly, as he set it on his finger, he vanished from Sam's sight. Sam gasped, but he had no chance to cry out, for at that moment many things happened. Something struck Sam violently in the back. His legs were knocked out from under him and he was flung aside, striking his head against the stony floor as a dark shape sprang over him. He lay still and for a moment all went black. Gollum on the edge of the abyss was fighting like a mad thing with an unseen foe. To and fro he swayed, now so near the brink that almost he tumbled in, now dragging back. Suddenly Sam saw Gollum's long hands draw upwards to his mouth. His white fangs gleamed, and then snapped as they bit. Frodo gave a cry, and there he was, fallen upon his knees at the chasm's edge. But Gollum, dancing like a mad thing, held aloft the ring, a finger still thrust within its circle. It shone now as if verily it was wrought of living fire. "Precious, precious, precious," Gollum cried. "My precious, oh my precious." And with that, even as his eyes were lifted up to gloat on his prize, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment on the brink, and then with a shriek he fell. Out of the depths came his last wail, "Precious!" and he was gone.
When the ring went into the fire, the power of Sauron went with it. His works were unmade, and he was undone. Were it not for Gollum, the quest would have failed. After coming so far, after enduring so much, after the sacrifices and the suffering of so many friends, when at last I stood at the crack of doom, I could not do it. I chose not to destroy the ring. How can I bear the shame of it? I let them down. I let everyone down.
The Nazgûl flee from battle? What can this mean? Sauron has summoned back to Mordor. Why?
Didn't see the bloody eagles.
Stand, men of the West! This is the hour! The Ring-Bearer has completed his quest! Lie here to me!
Mordor shakes beneath Orodruid's wrath. Fly swiftly, my friend. If Frodo or Samwise still live, we have to find them quickly.
The mountain burns. I will circle to the far side, but someone must search the nearest room, and with haste.
That is a task for my adventurer. We will circle Orodruin and come back for you. May one of us find our hobbits.
"Well, this is the end, Sam Gamgee," said a voice by his side, and there was Frodo, pale and worn, and yet himself again, and in his eyes there was peace now, neither strain of will, nor madness, nor any fear. His burden was taken away. There was the dear master of the sweet days in the Shire. Said Frodo, "Do you remember Gandalf's words? Even Gollum may have something yet to do. But for him, Sam, I could not have destroyed the ring. The quest would have been in vain, even at the bitter end. So let us forgive him, for the quest is achieved, and now all is over. I'm glad you're here with me, here at the end of all things, Sam."
The ring was destroyed. Gwathorn and his kin braved the great peril of the skies and carried our heroes from the wreck of the burning mountain. And on the field of Cormallen, they were praised for their great deeds and the successful completion of the quest. The Lord of the Rings was no more, and Middle-earth was made safer by his defeat.